you sort of brought up something really important in there. Hearing feedback from the users. One of the recent topics floating around the Linux world is a change that's coming into Fedora Linux. So with Fedora 40, they want to bring in a telemetry system where they're collecting information about, how people are interacting with GNOME, how they're, using this software, what software they're using. And the contributor that brought this idea in basically made the argument that opt-in data is basically useless because of how biased it is towards the extreme enthusiast users. And I was curious what sort of perspective you guys have on this from both the developer perspective and also more of the managerial perspective.
I'll give this. I'll let Keith carry this one because he's been through this.
Oh man, so Kodi has no username password ability. We have no idea who uses any Kodi product. Like, of course, if you install from Google Play, we have an install number, right?
Right.
Other than that, everything else is guesses. We allow you to download it off the app, off our website. You can download the APK and install it that way. Tons of people do. In general, we've never. So if you ship an add-on with Google Analytics, we'll deny it for our own repo. We don't believe in any sort of analytics like that, any sort of like looking at what people install, so we do have a couple rough guesses, right? We can look at, we can see add-on downloads, right, and we can make some rough guesstimates based on, there's a language add-on download that you need to download after the fact, or we update it, or a new skin or something of that nature, right? A new scraper. So that's the only way that we have any basis of even understanding what our user base is, right? We'll never talk about users. We always talk about installs because that's the best guess that we can go after. This was always interesting when I'm sitting in a conversation with a content provider and they're like, hey, so how can I, understand your numbers? And I was like, well, we don't really believe in that because we're very strongly against even, opt-in. It's better not to even have that system because it's so easy to get abused. On top of that, anonymized data in general is hard to do correctly. And as we've seen time and time again, it's better just to not collect it unless you actually have a use of it, right? With that said, we've definitely seen, I've talked to providers and they're like, hey, I have to put user tracking on the client in order to basically see what people are doing. And I was like, why? Like every single time I hit a piece of media, your servers have all that data. So I don't understand why tracking needs to exist on the client side as well. And I think that, honestly, like a lot of developers out there, not to go on a tangent, but have just gotten lazy and like they've put so much stuff in clients that really don't need to be there when, anybody knows that you can just track all that stuff and monitor that stuff from the back end if you truly want to. And then it's a lot less, in my opinion, privacy exploiting, because then it's like what I hit is what which is a reasonable thing. If I know that I'm clicking on this thing, that's fine.
Right.
If I don't know that those things are happening, it's a completely different experience. So you actually mentioning that, though, that is another reason why a ton of people use our open source add-ons when they use streaming services, is because if you've ever looked at Pi-hole or anything like that when you're connecting like Netflix, oh man, the amount of like servers and data is linked to those things, and maybe it's all legitimate. Who knows? There's no way for us to tell because it's SSL. At least in Kodi land, you can actually trace back not only why that user connection happened and what exactly data is being sent, because of course you could just look at the code. So there's definitely, we've been accused of, somehow like storing data, and it's like there's no closed source component at all in anything we do, right? So if you don't install Widevine, or a binary add-on that you install externally yourself, everything that you're going to be able to see, you can audit yourself. And so we will personally, as a team, we're definitely against that. We have not found a legitimate excuse / reasons. Me personally, as somebody who's represented for business development and tried to get more quote unquote corporate adoption, I've tried to push it. I will admit, I will never do that again. I was a much younger, more naive person back then, and based on how data is being used today, I'm thankful that in those discussions they they went the way that they did, right? The one thing that is slightly annoying is we don't even have bug reporting, because the problem with that bug reporting stuff is the same problem, right? And so like all of the like how you report a bug in Kodi land is you download, you basically submit your own debug log to us. You
Right.
can go download a log sender and you can send it to our paste bin, right? But there's not an easy way, and like so we have to ask the user a ton of questions on how stuff is, or we have to make sure our logs aren't spewing too much stuff, so we get the snippet that matters, right? And so it's definitely yeah, everything's a balance, but I'm glad and I'm proud of the stance that we've took on that, and I don't ever see that changing, at least in core code, right?
Well, yeah, if we're talking like plugins, especially third-party plugins, there's not really anything you do about those ones. Like if some third-party plugin comes along and they're like, we want to put everything in there, there's going to be a keylogger. Like you can't stop that. It's third-party.
Unfortunately, it's happened.
I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised.
The crypto miners were pretty funny. Because you're and especially because they were on like Raspberry Pis and things like that people were selling, or like Fire Sticks, and they were selling crypto miners on, or they were selling those with preloaded add-ons, and some of them had crypto miners in them. And it's like, are you? And I mean, maybe I guess if you have enough, like, who knows what happened there? But in general, yeah, we try really hard to be diligent. We've had a few cases where somebody has updated an add-on in our repo, and we noticed that they were downloading an obfuscated zip file from a server.
Yep. That
wasn't initially there, 6 months ago when they updated last. And we've definitely, had to talk to them. And even though we've downloaded those zip files and we've looked at them and there was nothing quote unquote malicious in them, the practice itself that they were doing is concerning enough to basically not allow it. And in one extreme case, the developer, who was a fantastic Kodi developer, had contributed tons and tons of stuff, unfortunately, like, got really upset that we were trying to remove him and, put his tail between his legs and left. And ultimately, it's unfortunate that that's how it turned out. But I think for the good of the community, like, things like that have to happen, right? Like, we have to be able to trust each other, and there has to be a level of trust. And we try really hard with our platform and with our community to only release stuff that people can trust, and to we can't, stuff slip through, unfortunately, in our repo, and stuff has happened. But by and large, we make as best effort as possible to make sure that our stuff is as safe without you having to go and audit source code.
Right. Well, Brent, from the developer perspective, obviously ignoring the the keylogger stuff, the crypto miner, like, let's just say legitimate anonymized data, ignoring the fact that maybe anonymized data might be difficult to do, would you as a developer find that sort of data useful to what you're doing, or is it not really something that has any value to you in the first place?
Honestly, I from my viewpoint, and this is just sort of me, I have asked the question about it before, because I think it adds value. But as Keith said, it's very hard to do right. And I think realistically for our stuff and our users, I think our stance of just not doing it is just better for everyone. It does make, from a developer side of things, make some things harder. Requires a bit more engagement from users that are having issues. But that's it. This day and age, giving up your data, it's a hard sell, because security issues everywhere, and then what is done with that data, and when it is on-sold to someone else, it's very hard to keep track of that sort of stuff. So it would be nice, but I definitely understand where the team and the project is coming from, and I fully support and will back that. I there's nothing that we can't that makes it impossible to do. That would be different if we had that data. It would make something slightly easier, but again, most everything we can find a way around it, and we just improve our logging to highlight things as best we can, and what's crucial. So yeah.